So, got a lot of responses last time, and I'm gonna break down some things about how car engines work. Come here. So, unless you have an electric car or a horse and buggy, your car's gonna run off this thing right here. That's called motor oil. It's petroleum based. This information that I'm giving in this video is just to educate anybody. I'm not going to show anybody how to do an oil change, but I'm just educating how this works. So, when you check your oil, pause. Okay, so when you're checking your oil, I like to grab a white rag because I want to see the color of the oil first. I go from the stem itself of the oil dipstick. Now, not all cars have an oil dipstick, so I'm going to wipe it off. That is pretty dirty, but that's not completely black yet. However, this is getting towards the end of its life. I would say I have another maybe 1,000 or 2,000 miles left on this oil change, if I'm lucky. But, when I'm checking the oil, you put it back down, all the way, take it out. Now, you see that double dot? That's full. Well, this dot right here next to my finger. That dot that you can barely see over there, that would mean a quart low. I'm going to have to edit this. But if you look at this side, the oil goes all the way up over here. Because when it goes into it, it slants in. So you have to know what side to look for. That's kind of irrelevant. Now, to one of the comments that I got on my last short, saying that it's one of the rings or an oil consumption issue of the Subaru motor, you first have to understand what oil is doing. It's lubricating parts inside the motor so they don't lock up. Metal-to-metal contact will cause friction, cause high heat, causing it to friction weld itself together, meaning your engine will be absolutely useless. Subaru uses what's called a flat boxer motor. If you look at this engine inside here, so much editing. This engine here, you see two intake plenum, well, not two intake plenums, but you see an intake plenum here, which separates two cylinders and two other cylinders. That's a V engine, isn't it? No, it's not a V engine. Let me show you what a V engine looks like. This is a V engine. Just like before, you have an intake plenum, or known as an intake manifold. Three engines are in the back over there, and three cylinders are in the back over there, and three cylinders are in the front up here. This engine forms a V format, not a flat format. What's good about this here is, little fun fact as well before I get into that, every engine will burn oil. It just depends on how much oil it's burning is a difference. From the oil pump sending it all the way up to the valve train and it trickling down and it going into the main crank, splitting off to all the rods and then splitting up into the actual piston itself to lubricate the cylinder. Every engine will burn a small, minute amount of oil. Typically, you're going to see about a quart of oil loss in every 20,000 miles on the most modern engines. That's literally nothing. That is such a small, minute amount of oil. And most engine changes should be done anywhere between 3,000, 5,000, or 10,000 miles. Typically, that's how often you will be doing your oil changes, depending on your manufacturer's specifications. This engine here is a V engine, which means gravity is already in its favor for oil consumption. When the piston is being lubricated and it strikes down, there is a little bit of oil in the cylinder wall, and it gets caught up and blows up. But because gravity works in our favor this way, it's already wanting to push it down back into the oil pan. So this engine will burn very little, if any, oil at all. This is where the boxer motor has a little bit of what you might call a flaw. but it's not really much of a flaw. This here, because the engine is sitting like this, and the pistons are going this way, and then it's constantly going that. Well, the oil gets in the cylinder wall to lubricate it. The piston strikes back, but because gravity's not in its favor, it stays in there just a little bit, and it gets sucked up into the compression stroke and then blows up and out the exhaust goes. So yes, a Subaru boxer motor or Porsche boxer motor will naturally burn more oil than other cars. That's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as when you do have a low oil, you're not going to go Mr. I don't know, Dom Toretto on this and then shift through every gear because you're like, I gotta get family from the hospital. Bah! Bad idea. You will detonate your motor a lot sooner than somebody else that's like, oh, I need oil. Let me just calm down a little bit and not extremely drive fast. Okay, Tiger, what are you doing? But that is a premise. Now, I did already fill this up with oil. However, I will show you how to do this. You know you're going to have to pause. So, in this engine here, the oil pan, like most cars, are on the bottom. This is where you would fill it up. Now, every car is different, but typically you're going to find it on the top of the engine or the, not the intake manifold, but you're going to find it on the valve train. When you take this off, this is where you will pour the oil. I will be making a full in-depth video on how to do an oil change, just not today. So, you put oil in here, and also, if you don't know what oil you take, there's 3 ways to tell. Number 1, read your cap. Most caps tell you what oil it takes. I believe even my Ford says that. Hey, it does! So, you can read your cap. Number 2, say your cap does not tell you what kind of oil you should take. Well, now there's 2 main ways. 1, do you have your owner's manual? There you go. Look inside there. Your owner's manual should tell you. Typically in the first couple pages where it's just telling you information about the car and basic needs. Or, if you don't have your owner's manual and your cap doesn't tell you, now what do? Well, you technically have 2 options, but both of them involve the internet. 1, pull out your phone. Google it. And I'm not saying go on Reddit and look at the first guy. For instance, don't even take my word for this. I can tell you right now. Put 0W20 in your Mini Coupe. Let's see how long that lasts. It won't last long. But you do have many other good resources. One of my favorite websites to use is AMSOIL. Use AMSOIL's website. They have a guide-by-guide and step-by-step for what vehicle you have, and even submodel and trims of different engines. So, there you go. Use that. If you don't have access to the internet, the last one that you're going to have to try is pull out your phone again, or get your old-fashioned grandmother's wall phone, dial it the old-fashioned way with a little spin dial, and call the local auto parts store. Tell them what you're working on, and tell them what type of car, and find out the oil that way. I shouldn't have to tell you guys this, but I'm breaking this down literally because I know some people are not going to be like, huh, yeah, he didn't say this. Comments! But the point being is, that is the premise of how oil works. Oil is the most probably overlooked portion of the internal parts of an engine because it does the most amount of job. It is the most important. It and coolant are like equal, but I would say if you had to run a car without one, running your car without oil will damage it far sooner than running it without coolant. Definitely. But what I'm trying to break down is the oil that is in a Subaru, well, not even the oil, the engine design that a Subaru uses will naturally burn more oil. In more context to this, when I made that short this morning, coming home from work, this car, I have not changed the oil in 10,000 miles now. I don't change my oil often, and there's a good reason behind that. The type of oil I use, hashtag not sponsored, Mobil 1. Mobil 1 has the extended performance. Now, you might be able to say you can hate on it, you might have your preference brands. I have no grudge against any other brand, except for one, but that's just because of the way how they go about it. Valvoline is not my personal favorite, and I do like to kind of hate on Valvoline a lot, but it is a really good oil. However, compared to side-by-side with Mobil 1, I have tested it personally. I'm not that impressed with Valvoline, but whenever I use my oil change, I flush out the system, and I even put a quart in here before I do the oil change, just to flush out any old oil. I don't use the best of oil. I use the cheapest oil I can find just to flush it out. Something quick, just to get it all the oil, dirty contaminants. But what you're going to do is you take this off. Because I don't want to mess up ever, I like to put this on the latch itself. That way, I can't physically close the hood and have this exposed. 2. During my first oil change, obviously, this goes. This is an oil filter. Yours might have a different location. My Ford is right underneath the car by the firewall. My Kia is up front by the alternator. Each car is different. However, this, in between my oil changes, this is my third oil filter was in this oil change. I change them out every 3,000 miles. That's what Mobil 1 says to do if you're going to run it for more than 10,000 miles. And because of that, Mobil 1 says to replace it every 5,000. I personally choose every 3,000 just because I want the engine to last longer. And I drive this thing like a dog. I run it hard. And I hope this clears up any information that's out there. I will make more information on this. One of my first more informative videos to be about my Prelude. So, thank you, comment section, because now I can't even have my first Prelude information video. I'm not really that mad, but like, comment. I don't know what I'm asking for here. And, you know what? Subscribe if you like this video, and if you want to see more content like this. Okay, so, basically what I'm trying to say in this video here is, yes, she's very cute. The information I was given last night when I was pulling in is literally just because this car just did that, and I wanted to educate people on if there's a yellow light on your dash. That's not meaning to just ignore it for years, but if you have a yellow light that comes on your dash, it's not necessarily I have to pull over right now and I'm gonna kill myself.
She has some commentary.
What? Yeah? Okay. But when you have a red light on your dash, if it's a red oil consumption, that is immediate. You should pull over, turn off your car. You might damage it. I think she is agreeing. However, if there's a yellow light on your car, whether it be a check engine, anything that's on the car, or the yellow oil light that I had, that doesn't mean that you have to stop. But if you are driving your car, like I said before, Dom Toretto, you might want to stop driving like Dom Toretto if you have a yellow light on your car. Not necessarily the best thing for your engine. Pause. So in conclusion, yellow lights are fine. Red lights means, hey dummy, pull over. This is not safe. A green light typically is reflective for your lights. Whether you, a lot of Volkswagens have the yellow and green lights for lights being out, like your actual headlights or something. And then you also have the green light that I have, which is for my fog lights. But that is basically all I was trying to educate people on. That way people don't freak out and think that their car's going to explode. Which I've literally heard people, I have a yellow light on my dash, it's going to explode. And then I take a look at it and I'm like, yeah, that's just a check engine light. Let me take a look what that is. And then find out that they need something like really minute. So, hope you guys enjoyed. Like she said, bye!